Thank you for having me. This year we tried to thought about doing our budget a little bit differently, and I decided that I wanted to get out in the public to engage with citizens around issues that might be confronting our community from a budgetary standpoint. And I would expect that this coming year it's going to be the toughest budget that I've ever done, even though the deficit is not as big, because it's going to be important to fund DSS and those programs and services that they provide so that the people who walk through the door in fact getting the benefits, and so that we can kind of spread the workload out among the staff. It's going to be important to fund our public health programs, and it's going to be important to fund our sheriff's office and to make sure that he's got adequate staff to operate the jails and things that he has to operate. And when you start thinking about what our core services are, human services, social services, public safety, there are programs and services that are very popular. See Charles sitting there. Charles works in Park and Recreation. Park and Recreation services is not a mandated service. All right. Another very popular service is library services. It also is not a mandated service. But try to close down a library. I tried it about 5 years ago. I tried to close down, as an example, Myers Park Library. But try to close down a library. Library use is up. You know why it's up? Because unemployment is up, and people are going to libraries to do research on the computers, to put their resumes together, to look at job searches and that type of thing in libraries, but it's not a mandated service. Okay? Education services is very, very important. The school system is continuing to have some growth in its student population. And when you start talking about either keeping flat or reducing school services, it becomes contentious. My point is very clearly this. For every service that we provide in the county, there is a very vocal constituency attached to it, and people will come and say and let the county commissioners know about those services that they hold true and dear to their hearts. And that's what complicates the services that we provide.
You made our point for us for Park and Recreation. If we don't provide services for our youth and our teens, then it presents a problem on our streets. And thus, we have it's a trickle-down effect, and it affects the whole entire Charlotte community. So I'm standing on my firm ground that we need Park and Recreation services for our youth and teens.
A Child's Place taught us a couple of things, even with the Hall House project. That if you ask people, if you have a vision and you ask people for things, you can get what it is that you need. There was somebody that thought that homeless children should have a place to live while they're in school, and as a result of that, they collected, $750,000 to house those people, and then they collaborated with other agencies, such as DSS was one of them, and the Charlotte Housing Authority and Salvation Army to permanently house these people. The same thing has happened with Morris Place. Somebody had urban ministry, had a heart for homeless people. They asked the community, how is it that we can help this situation? They've collected almost the $10 million that's needed to open up Morris Place. So I believe that a lot of times we have not because we ask not. But at the same time, I believe that the way to go is collaborations, because we have operated in silos for so long that we are duplicating services and we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and I don't think that's the way to go. If I am a major agency, I need to look how I can partner with someone else to help the persons that we all have in common. And that saves money. Again, you're not reinventing the wheel, and I believe that the collaborations are really the way to go.
When you start talking about doing things differently, we also have another problem associated with it, is that we become very territorial in our thinking. The territoriality exists, and too many of us want to maintain the silo to protect what we believe to be our own turf, as opposed to trying to tear down the silos and create more cross-communication around services that exist. I learned some things in this budget process. Evelyn, she's the advocate for the Council on Aging. One of the things that I proposed was to take a look at the Council on Aging and the senior centers to see if there was any way that they could consolidate service, to consider it, not to say consolidate, but to look at it. We determined from that they could not make it happen because they were very different, but there were some efficiencies that they might be able to eke out by operating very differently in terms of how they provide their backroom services.
I think she had an excellent point with getting services to collaborate. Because if we go back a week and look at how much the United States was able to raise for the people in Haiti because it was a crisis, well, 100% of our students at Thomasboro get free and reduced lunch, or they're classified as economically disadvantaged, which to me is a crisis. So we need to look at the ways that we're reaching out to people, and you hit on that as well. Are we reaching out to enough people? Or when we collaborate, what is it? How are we reaching out to make sure that we get what our community needs? If we can do that for Haiti, well, I mean, I really think that we could easily do that for Mecklenburg County as well.
If you think about, we still have a 10% unemployment rate. People who've got high educational attainment who are now looking to get back employed will probably be underemployed when they start back. And so they're pushing the people who are less educated further and further down. The opportunity is just not going to be there for that group of people. And guess where they're going to end up? They're going to end up coming through our doors, whether it's for social services, whether it's the jail, whether it's for mental health services or whatever. And so it's an area that I would hope that as a community we can try to figure out how to change that paradigm